From the start, V Rising won us over. The game's unique approach to action survival was incredibly well done, and as a team that loves a bit of PvP action, the game clicked on nearly every level. Fast forward 1 year since its early access release, and V Rising is getting its first major free update, Secrets of Gloomrot. From the beginning, the team said they'd be dropping less frequent, larger content updates, and that certainly seems to be the case here. There's still details we don't know, but for now, let's talk about the biggest changes and additions and their overall impact on the game. The first major change coming to the game is a substantial rework and addition of a new zone to the V Rising world. For starters, a new vineyard area is being added to Silverlight Hills, which should help give that region a bit more variety. Additionally, the team has reimagined the Cursed Forest experience. They didn't provide any additional details, but my guess is that the team wants to distinguish the Cursed Forest from the new zone, Gloomrot. On top of that, Dunley Farms, the largest region in the game, is getting some additional points of interest, namely a quartz mine and glass factory, which should help with some of those mid-tier resources that required substantial investments to accumulate. However, what's most exciting is the introduction of a brand new zone, Gloomrot, which the developers say is nearly the same size as the Dunley farmlands. The region is split into two parts, Gloomrot North and Gloomrot South, and players will have to navigate polluted valleys and lightning-scorched highlands as they face the uncontrollable horrors of the Transcendum's mutated experiments. By the looks of things, this entire zone is inspired by the works of another fictional monster, Frankenstein, and the team even hints that progression in the zone will culminate in an epic battle against an ultimate weapon of war. From the few images and concept arts revealed by the team, it's pretty clear that Gloomrot is home to some twisted experimentations, so it's likely players will face a number of constructed horrors as they lay claim to this new zone. As players explore this reimagined Verderon, they'll also have to contend with new dynamic weather events. Gale winds sweep across the world, choking mists look to suffocate you in the Cursed Forest, and lightning strikes the hills of Gloomrot. These new weather hazards create another layer of challenge as players explore, build, and fight. With all the changes coming to Verderon, you better believe there's a whole host of new enemies coming to give players a hard time. According to the developers, 13 new V-Blood bosses and 30 new enemy types will be released as part of this update. These new enemies won't just be confined to the new Gloomrot zone either. It's said that new foes are being deployed across the entire map. As players explore the world, there's also a chance they'll run across new trading hubs. Here you'll be able to spend coin on unique goods such as rare jewels or crafting recipes, things that are a bit more elusive to find. The goal is to give players more incentives to spend the coin they collect, but be warned, not every trading hub is friendly to vampires, so you'll have to learn which you can approach normally and which will require a disguise. One of the biggest changes coming to V Rising in the Gloomrot update is the introduction of multi-tiered castles. The team admits this has been the single most requested feature in the game, and after a lot of experimentation, they'll be implementing it during this update. For those that have played the game before, you know how big of a deal this actually is. Sprawling castles not only paint a massive target on your back, but also become unyieldy and hard to manage and traverse. Verticality adds a completely new dimension to the game, not just from a gameplay perspective, but from a creative one as well. Players will no longer need to claim individual pieces of land and will instead be allowed to freely build both horizontally and vertically, creating multiple floors as needed. The team hasn't revealed what the restrictions are when it comes to building upwards, but I have to imagine there are some guardrails. Staircases will no longer be a mystery to players. They're now integral pieces of your castle design, allowing you to expand vertically as you build your castle into the sky. The developers are still testing how far players will be able to push this system, with more internal testing being done leading up to the launch of Gloomrot. Once stairs are placed, players can use floor tiles and expand outwards, allowing access to new heights. As you expand, the game will automatically detect where you may need a railing and place it much like how the roof system functions currently. Railings act as barriers that prevent players from attacking over them, but also still allow vampires to move over them as needed, gaining access to the areas below. The team also revealed they've made improvements to the overall building UI to give players a better experience when creating and traversing their castle. This includes a new castle teleporter, which allows vampires to rapidly move between smaller paired teleporters within your territory, a move aimed at alleviating travel time in multi-storied castles. Thankfully, the team also realized the PvP implications here. Once a siege begins, teleporters stop working. Along with these new capabilities, the update will also bring about new cosmetic castle items like garden pieces, different color options for existing pieces, and of course, new decorations. Combat is also getting a sizable facelift in this update, including the addition of some new weapons and spells. First and foremost is the addition of a brand new School of Magic, Storm, which gives players control over deadly lightning-based spells. This adds a 6th School of Magic to the game and gives players even more options for how they mix and match spells as part of their kit. Magic as a whole has also been completely reworked. Every spell in the game has undergone some sort of change, and whether that be a small rebalance or a complete overhaul, the Magic that we once knew is a thing of the past. To start, a new stacking debuff system will allow players the ability to focus on one school of magic if they want. I don't think it'll change the fact that more advanced players will utilize a diverse custom spell loadout, but now players of all shapes and sizes will have more options and synergies when it comes to spells they bring into combat. Don't worry, the developers are experimenting with a diminishing return system as well, giving them the ability to balance any one school of magic as needed. The goal here is to make each school of magic feel more specialized. Every school of magic will have a unique effect that is more consistently tied to every spell within that school, and we actually learned what those intended focuses will be. Blood spells will be able to place a life leech debuff on enemies. Chaos spells will still focus on the ignite debuff, but all chaos spells across the board are shifting towards more offensive stats. With frost spells, the chill debuff will still be present, but it'll no longer freeze targets outright. Instead, there will be new ways to consume that debuff to apply a freeze to your foes, but it will require jewel specialization. As a bonus, this will also now affect V-Blood units. Illusion spells will retain its weakening effect, making enemies deal less damage, but as a side effect, you'll also now receive the Phantasm buff. With each stack, you'll increase your chance to bypass spell cooldowns and give your vampire a free ability cast, similar to how the Scholar Blood worked before. Unholy spells will still amplify damage on targets, but will also now spawn undead minions if the target dies while under that debuff. Finally, storm spells will apply the static debuff, causing the target to take an additional 10% magic damage whenever they're hit with physical damage while the static debuff is active. The biggest adjustment to magic comes in the form of spell jewels, new items that will begin dropping around the time you're taking on the V-Blood unit, Clive the Firestarter, and will be tailored to the progression level it's acquired at. This means you'll only be finding jewels that you can currently use, but as you progress and defeat more V-Blood units, the jewel system will expand more and more. Jewels can be found already cut and ready to socket. They can drop from creatures and V-Blood units, but the primary way you're going to find them is from chests and gold chests. Eventually, you'll be able to use the jewel cutting station to make your own jewels out of gemstones, allowing you to get a random jewel of a specific type. This still involves an element of randomness, but it's a lot more reliable than finding jewels out in the wild. These jewels will have special randomized properties that can dramatically alter the way spells function or interact with targets. The best thing about them, they're slotted directly onto your spells, and once equipped, they can't be dropped on death. While you'll only be able to equip one jewel per spell, early jewels will have one modification, while late game jewels can feature up to 3 different effects, giving unprecedented control over how every single player engages with this system. On top of new and rework spells, vampires will also gain access to 2 new weapons, the long-awaited Greatsword and dual pistols. It'll be interesting to see how these weapons fit into the current weapon landscape. Currently, the crossbow is the only ranged weapon in the game, and across the board, players agree it's one of the weakest weapons outside of purely group combat. If the dual pistols can prove to be more useful in a variety of combat scenarios, it's very possible the weapon could change the entire dynamic of V-Rising combat, specifically around PvP. Speaking of changing the landscape of combat in the game, let's talk about the introduction of legendary weapons. According to the new Gloomrot landing page on their website, players can find one-of-a-kind ancient weapons and restore them to their former glory. Randomized properties enhance your weapon's abilities, as well as offer special on-hit effects to further expand your strategies. Taking a look at this screenshot gives us a pretty good idea of what to expect. By the looks of things on the website, players might need to find multiple pieces of a legendary weapon and reforge them to bring them to that former glory, but that's just speculation based on this picture, not something we know for sure. Nonetheless, legendary weapons add another new dynamic to the game's combat. Now, I may not be the biggest PvP player, I tend to enjoy PvE a lot more, but Livid, on the other hand, lives for the PvP in this game. Across both types, there have been glaring issues that, in our opinion, directly resulted in the decline of the server's populations. And no, we aren't talking about content. Land claims have been one of the biggest issues when it comes to server health. Between clans stacking multiple castles to make impenetrable strongholds and PvE players blocking the entrance of other players to roads, the overall system that governed these wasn't great. With this new update, territories are coming to V Rising. Instead of placing a castle heart and expanding tile by tile, vampires will be able to claim whole plots of land. The goals? Fit more players in the world in a more fair and balanced way, reduce player friction through eliminating the blocking of each other's build areas, and prevent technical issues that resulted in unclaimable ledges, castle stacking, and massive servant armies. This is all aimed at not only solving these issues, but laying down a more comprehensive foundation to add additional systems that interact with these territories much more easily in the future. The team teased ideas like infiltration missions, invasion, spy missions, and even mechanics where PvE elements would lock certain territories from being claimed till players eliminated threats higher up in progression, ensuring there is almost a constant fight over new territories. Overall, it's heartening to see the developers looking forward with their systems rather than constantly having to rebuild things as new ideas take root. So as I said, there is a lot coming to V Rising, and while some of what we talked about was a bit in the weeds, let's bring it back for a quick recap. The Secrets of Gloomrot arrives on May 17th as a free update. A new biome, Gloomrot, will be introduced, weaving together ideas of danger, technology, and magic. Massive changes to existing biomes will also be implemented. 2 new weapons will be added to the game. The entire spell system is being reworked. A new spell tree, Storm, is being introduced. Jewels are being added to enhance spells even more. The building mechanic is being overhauled, which focuses on the introduction of multi-tiered castles. New V-Blood bosses and enemies are being added to the game, and tons of quality of life improvements will take effect that impact travel, inventory, customization, sound and voice, and much more. If I'm being honest, it's this type of update that can completely revitalize the game. At launch, there were over 150,000 concurrent players, and truthfully, it's still one of the best survival games on the market. But as with all things, when something stops being brand new and fresh, it's hard to maintain that same level of interest across the entire gaming sphere. The Secrets of Gloomrot is the first of 3 major updates planned for V Rising, and hopefully it brings back players in droves. We think it will, but only time will tell for sure. Friends, we're excited to dive back into V Rising, so if you're planning to return to the game, or you're a new player checking out V Rising for the first time, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up, and consider subscribing. I also want to invite you to join the Legacy Gaming community on Discord. We just revamped our entire server, so if you're looking for a place to hang out, talk about great games, win free prizes, and group up with friends, check out the link in the description below. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.